So what kind of advice would you share with parents?
The most important thing, I believe, is starting to create a space where you can have hard and awkward conversations with your kid, and your kid can have those conversations with you without feeling like you're going to flip out and blow everything out of proportion, is incredibly important, more than what the conversation actually is. Like whether it's about sex or their bodies, or like if you can have that space open for kids, you can talk to them about sex, and they can talk to you about suicidal thoughts or LGBTQ or drug usage or, problems with alcohol. Like if you establish that, obviously the younger you start, the easier it's going to be on both of you. But if you can establish that line of open communication and leave it open for these hard, awkward conversations and make it a safe place, then that's when your kid is going to grow up and be a human and be a person in society. If you can really have that safe space where they can have a soft landing and come back and talk to you about these things, that's what's going to be the most beneficial for your child throughout their.
Welcome to Single Parent Success Stories, a podcast designed to inspire single parents. Here you'll find resources from self-care to finances to parenting and everything in between. Discover what it takes to thrive. Let the stories inspire you to what is possible.
Before we start the next conversation, I want to invite you to check out my amazing book, The Gift Inside, a powerful guide for healing your body, mind, and soul. Reclaim your strengths and awaken your true potential. Whether you are navigating heartbreak or simply seeking deeper fulfillment, this book offers the tools to turn your struggles into triumphs. It is time to unlock the gift within you. Available now on Amazon, or you can check it out on my website www.irinashehovtsov.com. Hello and welcome to Single Parent Success Stories. Today we have a special guest, Alisha Lunsford. She is the owner of Sexpert Parenting. She helps parents talk to their kids about bodies and sex in age-appropriate and shame-free ways. She is joining us from Washington State, and she is a mom of two. Welcome, Alisha. It is a pleasure to have you.
Thank you so much. It is such a pleasure to be here, and I appreciate you spending the time and opening this space up for me.
Thank you. Thank you for coming. So, in your own words, who is Alisha outside of what, of my introduction of you?
Well, I'm married, mom of two, and pretty spicy teenagers. Both girls. We've got a lot of hormones going on up in this house at any given time. I love the water. We recently moved from Colorado to Washington State, just specifically to be near some friends of ours and to be near water. And it has been fabulous, and I love it. Big advocate of like women's health care and LGBTQ suicide awareness, I don't know, all the things. Just doing what I love. Oh, and I have a dog that I love. Her name's Dakota, and she's scared of water. So that's kind of a downer for me, but we're working on it.
What makes you happy?
Oh my God. I love the water. And I love it when my kids tell me things. It makes me feel like, oh, I'm doing something right. Like if they'll open up and talk to me. I love being with people that I can just be authentic around, that I can just be myself. Yeah. Family and friends and water and my dog.
Awesome.
But I really just love being able to just be myself and do what I love and be me while I do it. I feel like there's so much of a lot of people's lives is taken up trying to be what other people need and what other people want. And I'm at a point where I had done that and I'm done with it. And I just really love that aspect of where I'm at right now.
Yeah, you're right. Because oftentimes we will fulfill other people's expectations of how a life is supposed to be. And right. we don't recognize we have our own wishes and desires and our visions of how we want to be. So
yeah, awesome. And that's it, and that's okay, and that's important.
Yeah. So how do you help people?
I help parents talk to their kids about sex and bodies in ways that are age appropriate I think a lot of parents are concerned about what if I tell them too much too soon? And in ways that help keep it shame-free, I think so I grew up in a very conservative household. We didn't have these conversations when I was a kid. And I think a lot of parents come from that same background where they didn't have a good example of what these conversations are supposed to look like because they never really had them with their parents. And so it's hard to know how to go into this piece of parenting without kind of infusing it with that sense of shame that a lot of people grew up with, body shame or shame about even talking about body parts or sex or any of it. I think that there are just a lot of wants. We want our kids to be sexually healthy. We just don't want to talk to them about it.
Right.
So I help parents navigate those conversations.
I love that. Yeah. And how did you come about to that? You said yourself that you came from this restrictive environment growing up yourself. So what caused you to kind of start doing the opposite?
So I grew up Mormon. My husband grew up Southern Baptist. So we both came from really conservative backgrounds. We had no clue how to have these conversations, hardly with each other, let alone with our kids. I am a sexual assault survivor. When I was 19, I was sexually assaulted. And then fast forward to when we have two kiddos, and our youngest, when she was 4 years old, she was diagnosed with stage 4 ovarian cancer. And so we found ourselves in a position of having to talk to our kids, a 4-year-old and a 6-year-old, about ovaries and what they are and body parts. And I had recently quit my job, and I was doing treatment. I was taking my daughter to treatment. We were up in Children's Hospital in Denver for a week at a time for her treatment. And so I had a lot of time on my hands, which I spent doing researching parenting and just a lot of other things that I love, brain science with kids and adolescents. And I found out that I was super behind in these conversations with my kids because we hadn't had any conversations with them. But even at 4 and 6, I was behind. I mean, we hadn't really talked body parts except for really private parts, but nothing more than that. And then I think what really, really, what really got me was I had come across the statistic that the Netherlands, for example, have top-notch sex education. They are the best sex education in the world in all developed countries. And they have the lowest rates of sexual violence and sexual assaults and teen pregnancies and abortions and STI transfers. And then the US, we come in dead last in sex education. We're terrible at it. And we have the highest rates of every single category, all of them. And so that really is what solidified just this drive in me to want to teach my kids and help other parents recognize the importance that it's not just your child, it's going to benefit your child in so many different ways. Even the kid with a healthy sex education is likely to wait longer before becoming sexually active. They are likely to have a healthier sex life as adults. I mean, there's so many different things. But just those statistics, knowing that it could help make society a safer place just by having people talk to their kids about things that we should be talking about anyway. And I know it's tough and I know it sucks. So that's why I work with the parents. I would love to work with kids, but it's so important that it comes from the parents. So I go through them.
Of course. Wow. Amazing. I love that. And I'm sorry about your daughter, but it shifted your perspective. And you started early, and
she's doing great now. She's 13, and like I said, she's snarky. She's great. She's doing great.
So what vehicle do you have? Appropriate ways? What's the earliest you should start speaking with your kids about that? And what kind of language or words would you use? And so for different ages. So let's say, I don't know, what's the youngest, and then what's the next?
There's so many different areas when you talk about sex education. I think a lot of people think about sex ed as the act of sex, intercourse, how babies are made, that kind of thing. You can start early before your kid is even talking. They know where their nose is. They can tell you where their feet are. But that is exactly where we need to be starting. And we need to be using like just head, shoulders, knees, and toes. We need to not be skipping like nipples and vulva or penis. We need to be, and we have to be using the actual names of the body parts, which is super important, especially as they get older. It's the number one way to deter child predators is by teaching your child and having your child use the actual names of their body parts. Like it's just that simple, because that tells any potential predator that might be keeping an eye on them that they have a safe adult that they're having these conversations with about their body. And if they're using those words, then they know that those conversations have been ongoing, that they're not just like a one and done conversation. They talk about their body with that safe adult fairly consistently, which is how it should be. So early and using all of the correct terms for it. Moving into like the first time your kid says, hey, how are babies made? Or how did that baby get in there? Whatever. I think adults tend to sexualize a lot of things. We tend to immediately like, woo, red alert, like sirens. And we're thinking, oh my God, like erections and orgasms and all these things. It's like, really what they want to know is there's an egg and there's a sperm. And when they come together, that's what makes a baby. And they likely are going to run off and play and not even think about how the sperm gets to the egg for a while longer. And so I think that it's just breaking it down to factual and honest information that's age appropriate. So like, we don't want to talk to them about the stork. We're not going to talk to them about all of the cutesy things. So we just need to be honest with it, because truly it's just about bodies and how bodies work. You can talk about the same thing about any mammal. So it's just educating our kids in a way that they can understand it and not going over their heads and not letting ourselves get in our own ways, in our own minds and in our way, and freaking out when kids are asking things.
So what would be, how you call it, when they're a 10-year-old, what is an appropriate conversation for a 10-year-old and an appropriate conversation for a teenager to have, would you say?
Mm-hmm. So 10 is probably where you're going to start getting uncomfortable having these conversations. If you're not already uncomfortable to saying the actual words, which so many of us are, so don't worry about that. But 10 is where it's starting to get into like sex for pleasure, grown-up sex for pleasure. And but before 10, the average age of pornography exposure is 9. So we need to be having those conversations before 9 of what pornography is. And it can be as simple as it's pictures or videos of people without their clothes on doing grown-up sex things. And it's not safe for kids. And, just making sure like it's an adult thing. It's made for adults. It's not safe for children. It's not good for your brain. And what to do if they come across it. And if they already have come across it, then just, walking them, helping them through what they saw. And if they're freaking out about it or whatever, given the situation. So at 10, you're talking a lot more about online safety, and you're going to be talking about the internet, and like, you're going to have like creepers on the internet. You're going to talk about that safety. You're going to talk about pornography, and you're also going to talk about puberty, which is a whole can of worms all on its own. And what the great part is like, you have a boy, you're also going to teach them about girl puberty. And if you have a girl, you're going to teach them about boy puberty, because it's important that they know, first of all, how human bodies work, regardless of the gender, what their peers are also going through, and that they need to be nice. They need to be kind, because their peers are having a hard time too. So puberty is fantastic. It's great time to talk about all that. As you get older, really, by the time your kid is getting into middle school, they should pretty much know all of the things. And that it seems super early, but I promise you the middle school hallways are talking about it. And if you don't get in there first, that's where they're going to learn their information. And if they don't understand the information that they're hearing, if they don't have somebody they can go to and ask about it, they're going to go to Google. And all that combination is just going to be a wreck. It's going to be a mess. And then you'll really be getting into the porn conversation with them. But they need to know about like sexual innuendos, and they need to know about like, nobody wants to talk to their 12-year-old about blowjobs, but that's, something that as a parent, we're uncomfortable doing, but it's something that they are going to hear anyway. So make sure that they understand in an age appropriate way of what that is. Most kids, when they first hear about anything oral sex, they're like, oh my God, that's disgusting. Cool. You know what? You don't ever have to do it. No problem. But, this is what it is because you're going to hear it. And if they hear stuff like that from you first, then when they do come across things that they don't know or they haven't heard before, you're going to be the one that they come and ask because you're the expert. You knew all of this stuff before it even came up. So if they're hearing something in the hallway and they're like, that's not true. Like, I don't know what like my like fourth grade friend just said about French kissing and getting pregnant, but I told her that's not true. So yeah, so then you get into the awkward stuff. And then as they get into teenagers and they already know about that, then it's going into safe sex and having conversations with them about like the chances of pregnancies and STI transfers. And like I said, if they know, if they're well educated, they're likely to wait longer before they become sexually active anyway. And that's kind of, I think, what every parent wants. And then we want to make sure that they feel good and they're comfortable with their first sexual encounter and experience, and that it's on their terms. And that, they're the ones that have to live with that decision. So we want to just make sure that they are well educated and know specifically what they're getting into and that the time is right for them. And it will never be right for us as parents, but it has to be right for them. So that was a big tangent. I hope that answered your question.
No, thank you. It's awesome. Yeah, for us, our kids are always going to be kids because we don't see them as this, I don't know, taller than you, grown up. You still look at them and you see this little, I don't know, 2-year-old, a 3-year-old, a 5-year-old in your eyes. And like, you doing what now?
Right. And nobody wants to talk to their kid about sex, and no kid wants to talk to their parent about sex. Like, this is awkward stuff. No one wants to cross this ground. But like as parents, you got to go through some awkward stuff, and this is part of it. And it sucks, but you're the parent, so you get to suck it up.
Yeah, you got to be a parent.
Right. Like, yeah, being a parent is hard. And this is one of those. This is part of that. And are you willing to be a little bit uncomfortable to make sure that your kid is safe and healthy?
So what kind of advice would you share with parents?
The most important thing, I believe, is kids don't care. Like, they get it if this is uncomfortable for you. And you can own that. And you can just be like, hey, this is okay. We need to talk about this. It's uncomfortable. I don't want to talk about it. I know you don't want to hear about it. But like, this is part of, it's important that whatever. So just own whatever. If it's weird, own that and tell them it's weird and get through it anyway. But having that line of communication, starting to create a space where you can have hard and awkward conversations with your kid, and your kid can have those conversations with you without feeling like you're going to flip out and blow everything out of proportion, is incredibly important, more than what the conversation actually is. Like, whether it's about sex or their bodies, or like, if you can have that space open for kids, you can talk to them about sex, and they can talk to you about suicidal thoughts or LGBTQ or drug usage or, problems with alcohol. Like, if you establish that, obviously the younger you start, the easier it's going to be on both of you. But if you can establish that line of open communication and leave it open for these hard, awkward conversations and make it a safe place, then that's when, like, your kid is going to grow up and be a human and be like a person in society. And if you can really have that safe space where they can have a soft landing and come back and talk to you about these things, that's what's going to be the most beneficial for your child throughout their entire life. So I guess my advice would just be like, it's tough to be a parent, but the number one priority of being a parent is your child. And that's the best way to keep them safe and healthy. So let it be awkward and own it, but make sure that there is a space where your child feels safe and can come back and talk to you about things and their bodies, and any hard conversation, any awkward conversation that they want to have, that there's a space for that.
Totally. Yeah. I guess it's all about creating that safe space so they go to you as their first source, as opposed to going to social media or YouTube or their friends.
Right. And I think it used to be like a lot of us learned about sex either by trial and error, or by like from our friends on the playground or in the hallways. And now kids are learning about it, like they're learning how to like do sex from porn, and it's incredibly detrimental to their mental health and physical health. Even it can be. So there's just the internet and access to online and having smart devices in every corner of your house or pocket or anything is a big deal right now, and the world is still kind of figuring out how to navigate it. But the best way to protect your kid is to be there, to have these conversations, to educate your child, and so that they know, empower them so that they know what they're getting into and they're making decisions, educated decisions that for themselves. So I think it's especially hard for single parents. And unfortunately, there's also a bigger risk for child predators because they tend to prey on the unstable household. And not to say that single parents have unstable households, but if they do, then often they almost so like the majority of predators, like 90% of predators are people that we know in our home, that we've let them in. We know them, we trust them, we've let them into our home and into our families. And it's unfortunately the single parents who need that extra help, who need that extra adult, and will rely heavier on that coach that is giving their child like free extra lessons, or that teacher who's willing to do extra study sessions with your child. And the predators know that. And so they're like taking advantage of that. So I think that it's even more important for single parents, not to say that those are not people that, I mean, there are people out there that are really good and good intentions, but just knowing and understanding and just keeping an eye out for kind of like red flags, and knowing that like if it's too good to be true, probably too good to be true. And I just think that just the awareness is going to be the most important piece. Just keep it in your mind and just keep, like think about it. It's likely it's not a reason to panic, but give it a second thought, a second glance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thank you. What are good conversation starters?
So if you're behind, if you find out that like, oh, I should have had this conversation a year ago or 6 years ago, whatever, a great place to start is just to say, hey, like, there's something we can talk about. I should have, like, you're getting so grown up, like you're so grown up, and you're online more now. And these are conversations we should have had a while ago, but they're coming kind of late, but it's important that we have them and get into it. Ask them about like, hey, have you heard about this? And what have you heard about it? What are your friends saying about it? Don't, specifically ask like, have you watched, but what do you think about it? What are your friends saying about it? And then talking about just bringing it up that way. Like this is, and if it's uncomfortable, own it at the beginning. Like this is something that's kind of uncomfortable for me, but it's important that we talk about this. As they get older, they tend to give a little more pushback, like, ugh, I don't want to hear this. I don't want to hear this. Stop talking. And I get it. Parents don't want to do it either. So a great time to talk about stuff like that is when you are in the car. You've got them locked into this tiny space. You're like going down the road at like high speeds. They can't get out. They're buckled in. Anytime that you can have a conversation with them where you're not making direct eye contact. So like those one and done awkward conversations are no longer a thing. And that's good because everyone hated them. But having like small, consistent conversations, do it when you guys are, doing dishes or going on a walk or something where you can have a conversation and not stare at each other, because that's going to be more awkward. Right. And then also do like 2-minute Tuesdays. Hey, I'm going to set the timer for 2 minutes, and you have to you've got to take your headphones off. You got to turn off electronics, and you don't have to look at me. You don't have to talk to me. You just have to listen for 2 minutes. Every single Tuesday, we're going to cover something new. I'm going to say the words. You're going to absorb the words, and we're not going to talk about it again for the rest of the week. But make sure they're getting the information somehow. Make sure that they're getting the information. Another thing that also works great with like grade school kids, up through teens, if they're writing, it's great, is get a shared journal. Have a journal that you can, that your kid can ask awkward questions, and that you have a chance to do your internal panic. Oh my God. Settle, decide what you're going to say, respond appropriately, slide that journal back to him in a day or two, and just have that line of communication still open in a less awkward space. But at least it's there. So those are a few tips, a few ways to go about it. There are multiple options when you're talking about how to approach things based on age and stuff, but those are some of the easier, just get in there and do it.
Yeah, I like that idea of journal. Like, it's like sometimes if you feel awkward talking about it, you can, write it, and then it's less awkward.
Yeah, right.
Like a first step into entry into this education space, and then you can evolve into conversations. And the 2-minute Tuesdays ideas, I think it's amazing. I love that.
Yeah. And use everyday opportunities. Like this world is sexualized. Like, you've got opportunities anytime you're watching TV or listening to the radio or going places. I mean, you've got opportunities to be like, oh, what do you think about that? Like, how do you feel about that? I mean, use everyday things that are going on around you as an opportunity to talk about it. Like, get your kid to open up and listen to their ideas, even if their thoughts are not your thoughts. Just, hold space for that, because they're going to change their opinions, and, just like everybody does. So don't panic. Just listen to them, give them a safe place to have their own thoughts and be interested in what they have to say. But there are a lot of opportunities. If you are watching for them, there are a lot.
You're right.
They're kind of everywhere.
Well, what's the smallest thing you've done that had the biggest impact in your life so far?
Okay. Meditation. I think it was starting a meditation practice, and my sister told me to do it, and she was like, it's seriously going to help a lot. And I was like, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. And I did it. Like, I was like, okay, so I'm going to do just like what they tell you, like the 1 minute, 2 minute. But truly, I think getting into meditation and doing it consistently has been a game changer for my mental health and my parenting. So I don't know how it does it, but it does. It works.
Yes, I call meditation the inner shower of the mind. Because when we wake up in the morning, we just wash our body. What if we wash our head?
Yes. Yeah.
Thoughts, the inside, some brainwashing.
Yeah. I feel like I need that several times a day. Just like, get all that clutter out of there.
Love that. Thank you. What is your superpower if you had to pick one?
I don't know that it, like, from the outside seems like a superpower, but I think if you're a parent, you know, but letting my kids have their big feelings, like, without reacting back, because that is not easy. It is not easy. And I do think meditation helps with that too, because it gives you, I don't know, it just calms your ass down a bit. And so when those big things come up, and one of my kids is going off on something like ridiculous that I have so many like holes I want to punch in their argument, but just letting them have their big feelings and sitting back and just giving them space for that without interfering with my throwing my big feelings in there. And I think, like I said, I don't think that seems like a big superpower, but it's tough. I think, like any parent knows, that's a superpower. That deserves a cape.
Because I called our kids are our greatest teachers, and sometimes the things they say could trigger us, and staying calm and present and just let them have it, let it out.
And our kids know us too. Like, they know us pretty well, and they know what those triggers are. They can tell. Sometimes they're just little assholes, and they just like poke at them. We love them. It's fine.
Has there been a good book that you can recommend for parents to read to get into that area?
I have so many book recommendations when it comes to talking to your kids about sex. Most of them are books that you would read with your child, especially younger ones. But as far as like for parent education, Yes, Your Kid is a really good one about talking about like digital age and understanding like society today and what kids are dealing with today and how to approach it. That's a great one. I'm trying to think anything else off the top of my head that I've read fairly recently. There are plenty. There are like really Joe Langford is great. He has a great book for LGBTQ youth and parents. Anything he's written is great, but I think right now the Yes, Your Kid is probably the one that I've been enjoying the most.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. Are there any fun projects you're working on that you like to share?
Oh my gosh, I am like this close to starting a podcast. Like I'm pretty sure I just need to be like tipped over the edge. So that's exciting for me. So stay in the loop for that. um yeah, and I'm always rotating group coaching. So parents that, whether they all have kids and going through puberty or 4-year-olds or whatever, different group coaching. I'm always available for, working with people one-on-one, but that's not a new aspect for me. But the podcast thing, pretty sure that's going to be a thing here soon.
Awesome. I love it. Thank you. Is there anything I haven't asked that you would like to share?
I don't know. I feel like I am an open book and I share a lot more than probably is expected. So I don't think so. Probably not. But if you think of something, I'm happy to answer.
To connect with you, learn more about you, where would they go?
I'm on Instagram. I'm not super active on Instagram, but that should be getting better. We'll see. But I'm on Instagram. It's Sexpert Parenting. I'm also on Facebook, and you can message me on Instagram or my website, which is just sexpertparenting.org, and message me from there.
Right.
And I would love to see you, hang out with you.
Awesome. Thank you. We'll include everything in episode notes. It's been a pleasure on having you, and I love the work that you are doing, educating parents on how to talk to kids about sex, starting on early. I think it's important. It is important education, and it's best that they learn from their parents as opposed to learning somewhere else. And thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me and just actually like creating a space where we can do this. So important. I love the work you do, and thank you for allowing me to be part of it.
Thank you.